especially the coast of Texas doesn't have a lot of structure, which makes it hard for fishermen to fish because fish really enjoy structure. So anytime we put structure out here, it's really good for fishermen and for divers.
We're at our reef site about 65 miles out of Galveston. We're trying to maneuver into a deep water spot that's at least 140 feet deep.
The Kraken was built in 1987 in Japan as a cargo carrier.
Look at the sun. Blind your eyes. There you go.
Cleaned of fuel, oil, and hazardous materials, the vessel will be a welcome sight for fish once the structure becomes encrusted with plants and animals, creating habitat for fish. And divers should be especially thrilled.
Because we're so far out, 70 miles out, we actually have decent visibility, where if we were to sink something closer to shore, we don't have the visibility.
With 4 large holes cut into the stern of either side of the ship, the Kraken should sink by what's called a controlled flood.
Water will rush into the stern, and we're hoping that the stern touches the bottom first, and all that superstructure will fill with water, and it'll bring the bow down nice and slow. It's so exciting! See on the body, Kraken.
With few exceptions, the floor of the Gulf of Mexico is flat and bare except for these artificial reef sites. Since the program began in 1990, the Artificial Reef Program has documented more than 200 marine fish species that make these complex, stable, and durable habitats home.
As soon as we sink the ship, there should be fish on it within minutes, which is really exciting.
For Texas Parks and Wildlife, this is Karen Loke.
This time on Salvage Code Red, off the coast of Oregon. A veteran salver takes on the challenge of removing a wreck that has defeated all others.
Hurry up, get off there.
And off Gibraltar, 700 tons of steel need to be lifted out of a major shipping lane, testing a team of salvers' engineering skills to the limit. Coos Bay, Oregon. Early explorers called this the Graveyard Coast. Over the years, this vicious stretch of water has wrecked hundreds of ships. This is the new Carissa, the remnants of a 36,000-ton freighter that has lain beached in the surf zone for the last 9 years. Many of the world's best salvers have tried to move her and failed. The new Carissa is known as the wreck that will not die. But Dave Perot has just won the contract to try and remove her. He is the founder of Titan Maritime, one of the world's most experienced salvage companies.
It's certainly been a project that I've been interested in from the outset, and one that I felt we could do and were the best equipped to handle of any other salver.
The new Carissa has been an obsession of Dave's for years. In 1999, the new Carissa ran into trouble in heavy seas.
She anchored offshore, the weather was bad, she was in closer than she should have been, and then she dragged, and before they were fully aware of how quickly she was dragging, she was ashore. It's just a sickening feeling when you're on a ship that's in serious trouble. It's very sad to watch a ship break up like that.
She spilled over 70,000 gallons of fuel oil, causing one of the worst environmental disasters the state of Oregon has ever seen. To prevent further ecological damage, the authorities took desperate measures, using napalm and explosives to burn away the remaining oil.
I think they thought they were doing the best thing they could that was going to burn off or get rid of the most fuel they could in the shortest time.
1 month later, the bow of the ship was successfully removed, but the stern had filled with sand and wouldn't budge. The state of Oregon had to take the ship's owners to court to get the funds to remove the final section. Now, with a budget of $16 million, Dave is going to put his reputation and that of his company on the line to see if he can clean up Coos Bay and remove the new Carissa.
If you leave that wreck there now, then forever in the future, whatever other wreck happens in Oregon or any other coastal state would be, they'd cite this as the reason why it could stay, so it had to go.
To salvage the stricken vessel from the sand, the team will have to contend with the seas. The new Carissa is beached in the surf zone, meaning she is incredibly difficult to reach and to work on. Dave Perot calls on the only man he trusts with the job, his resident salvage master, Shelby Harris. But even Shelby has his doubts.
My very first impression was probably I would be leery and cautious about approaching that job. There's going to be a lot of luck involved and a lot of cooperation from Mother Nature to be successful.
Shelby's first task is to work out how the crew can get to the new Carissa without having to contend with the pounding waves. This is where a budget of $16 million comes in handy.
The only way to successfully remove this stern section now is to go in with our jack barges that will elevate out of the water.
The plan is to assemble the first of 2 jack-up barges, a platform that will stand above the new Carissa on 6 giant steel legs. Getting it into position in the treacherous conditions around the new Carissa will be easier said than done.
And if we make a mistake here, we don't have much chance to rectify it. We'd end up another wreck on the beach.
Off the coast of Gibraltar, another wreck lies stranded. The freighter the New Flame sits barely above water. Her bow is trapped on the seabed. She's blocking one of the world's busiest shipping lanes and is an accident waiting to happen. 12 months ago, the New Flame had just left Gibraltar en route to Turkey when she collided with a tanker. A team from Titan was dispatched to try and save the engine room, but a vicious storm washed away their pumping equipment and the engine room was lost. Removing the New Flame became a lot more difficult. So far, the salvors have managed to extract 32,000 tons of scrap metal that was trapped in her holds. Now they need to cut up the New Flame and remove her piece by piece. The man leading the job is salvage master Jimmy Conroy, one of Titan's wreck removal specialists.
It's like a junk car on the side of the road. After a while, people get used to seeing it. Nobody really gives it. Some kid's gonna have to get rid of it.
Jimmy's team is about to embark on the trickiest and most dangerous part of the operation.
First thing that's going to come off is the accommodation block. We'll cut it with the full weight. She weighs out of
This massive engineering endeavor requires massive equipment. Already a 20,000-ton barge is in place. The plan is to cut the accommodation block off below the waterline. A 250-meter chain weighing over 30 tons will be wrapped around the accommodation block by a team of divers. The chain will be attached to 2 pullers that sit on the barge. These will force the chain to slice through the accommodation block like a giant cheese cutter. Another barge with a giant crane will lift the accommodation block clear and carry it back to port.
It's a pretty big endeavor. I mean, you've got to understand how it is attached. You've got to prepare it to be able to be taken off.
Teamwork will be the key. In Gibraltar, Jimmy's trusted right-hand man is diver John Walsh. He's already been in Gibraltar for 4 months. John knows the salvage job on the New Flame will be a long and grueling assignment.
It is what you make of it, you know? People know what they get into when they come out here, and if they don't, they find out real quick. It's a real steep learning curve.
There are few people Jimmy trusts as much as John, and he is the first one down to place the cutting chain.
John's an excellent salver. Excellent salvage.
That's a hell of a current that he's fighting down there.
John needs to use an underwater thermal lance to cut a clear path to lay the chain.
A worst case scenario in underwater cutting, the system generates a very, very powerful explosive gas. If you're not aware of it and that gas builds up, you spark it off, you're creating a bomb. And the only one that knows it is you yourself. There are signs of it. If you're building an air pocket, it isn't an air pocket. It's a hydrogen gas pocket.
Bad day on a regular job, somebody goes home and they've lost their job, or you've lost an account. Bad day on a salvage job, somebody goes home in a bag. Some guys are most comfortable, exact opposite of me, 17 floors up, cleaning windows or putting in framing on a construction site. Me, I can't even breathe up there. I hate heights. The water, on the other hand, I can do 8 hours in the water, 10 hours in the water, humping stuff all over the place, chain, hoses, and it doesn't bother me half as much as doing it on deck.
After 7 hours, John's shift is over, and the chain is 2/3 of the way around the ship.
Absolutely brilliant. You did exactly what I hoped that you could do. I don't put people unless I have confidence in them. And I've got a lot of confidence in John. Now, the younger guys, they haven't given me the confidence yet. We'll see.
The problem for Jimmy is that his most experienced diver is exhausted. Soon, one of the younger divers will have to be called upon. In Coos Bay, Oregon, in a rare but welcome spell of good weather, the barge is set up next to the new Carissa. Every piece of good luck is welcomed by the salvors.
We saw the weather window opening up, and so we just kind of slammed it together. So the barge is out here on site, which is the ultimate goal.
But getting out to the platform is still treacherous, and using boats on a day-to-day basis is impossible. The only way to get the heavy-duty equipment on board is to winch from the sea using a crane.
That was fun!
But for the crew, there is only one option, and Shelby is not happy with it.
Helicopter onto a, it's just, if we got bad weather kind of rolling in and we kind of keep working, you have to think about, well, do I stop and get the guys off of here now? Because if somebody gets hurt, a helicopter isn't going to fly over here anyway.
To ferry the crew, Shelby has hired local pilot Russ Garrett. His day job is with the sheriff's department, and he's had his fair share of near-death experiences.
I fly around the SWAT team. I get shot at in my day job, but flying on these barges is something else. Anything can happen so fast out there with the weather. The wind can shift quite rapidly as well, too. But whenever you're going in for a landing or anything like that, and if it's gusty, then you'll lose that wind for that split second, then the bottom wants to fall out on you. So you're kind of really having to scramble to change your power setting there to get back on top of it, so you don't obviously come in and smack that deck there.
Is Shelby over there with you? Have you seen him?
There's bad weather on the way.
We're talking about whether we make a mad dash before the weather goes to hell or not.
Dave is relying on Shelby to come up with a plan that doesn't rely on a helicopter to get the crew to and from the barge.
The helicopter says he can land in most of the stuff they're going to get. It just, if there's any fog, it just shuts the helicopter down totally.
With the lives of the team in his hands, there's no room for error.
That's a Serious Sea building right there. That's the kind we don't want.
Back in Gibraltar, the salvors are still trying to maneuver the chain into position around the new flame to cut off the accommodation block.
Before the diver goes in, he needs to put something in his pocket to open up this split pin.
Roger that, stand by, Jim.
The conditions are so treacherous that only salvage master Jimmy Conroy and his most experienced divers have been working in the water.
The chain's in a perfect spot, and then just pull the chain through and she'll come up.
The diving operation is almost complete, and the services of young divers like 31-year-old Seb Chanda have yet to be called upon.
Heavily overpaid galley.
But with the experienced divers exhausted, Seb is about to get his chance. It's a crucial part of the operation. If Seb can get the chain around the last part of the new flame, the cutting of the accommodation block can begin. Dive supervisor Billy Barlow will be guiding Seb via his head cam every step of the way.
I'm there to look after their safety, no matter who they are, the most experienced diver in the world or the youngest diver in the world. Once they put their head under the water, they can drown.
Zeb's down there right now, and he's trying to get an obstruction as the chain's trying to lead through the building. So where I actually went in and fashioned a new hole for it to escape out of, then he's now sorting it out where we got a new obstruction. So when he gets done with this, the chain will be able to run freely from the deck up through. We've got the chain out. Zeb's got the chain out, done a hell of a job.
Seb should have been out of the water by now, but there's a problem.
Well, as he was moving around, he fucking tied a knot in his dive hose.
Seb's umbilical cord is knotted. It's his lifeline to the surface. It is his means of communication with the dive shack and also contains his vital air supply.
You gotta know where your hose is all the time. Your life depends on that. So that tells me he's just running around just pulling stuff.
Come on, Seb, you're wasting time.
I'm fighting the current, Bill. I'm doing as fast as I can.
I have never seen such a bunch of knots in a diver deck. Doesn't surprise me, it disgusts me.
Thank you. That really helps.
He's gonna get hurt one more.
The risks of putting less experienced divers in the water in such tricky conditions are becoming all too apparent.
Now, if we were in a pressure situation and he was in the current and he all of a sudden, the tighter we pull on it, the tighter he gets on it, guess what? Now he's got no air. And the more we pull, the less air he gets. So he just killed himself.
Seb's up safe and sound, but Jimmy needs to double-check the path of the chain before they crank up the pullers. John has the perfect tool, a $45,000 remotely operated vehicle, or ROV, an underwater drone fitted with a camera.
The ROV can get in around the chain and not have to worry about killing somebody if something goes wrong. A diver can go and inspect it, but it takes a lot more work and it's a lot more risky. You go down in there, something gets weighed at the wrong moment, comes back at you, you lose a body part. This guy loses a body part. The only people that cry are the accountants back at head office. And me, because I gotta fix him when he comes topside.
Seb may have made a fundamental error in knotting his umbilical cord, but at least the pictures from the ROV show the chain is perfectly in place.
I got you, John. Tell me what you got.
House is done, Jim. House is done. Moving to the funnel.
Seb will receive plenty of stick from his colleagues, but the job is done.
My first really challenging dive, and a lot of lessons learned, what to do, what not to do next time. When you make a little bit of a goof up like that, you tend to get a lot of stick off the guys. Oh, you're useless, you baby diver, and all that stuff.
Jimmy knows that getting the chain in place is a huge achievement. Now the cutting off of the accommodation block can begin.
Today's a huge day. Tomorrow will even be bigger.
Back in Oregon, the salvage team on the new Carissa aren't having such a great day. The helicopter is still the only means of transport between the jack-up barge and the shore. Titan boss Dave Perot is constantly monitoring weather reports to see if it's safe to keep the helicopter in the air.
So we've got 31 knots on Wednesday, so the helicopter operations theoretically don't fly in excess of 30 knots.
On the jack-up barge, salvage master Shelby Harris is anxiously waiting for a ride back to base camp. These are the kinds of conditions that a helicopter pilot dreads.
Anything can happen so fast out there with the weather. Whenever you're going in for a landing, I was always looking at that windsock that we had up on the top of the deck there, so I had an idea which way my wind was coming from.
The wind's blowing from the wrong way. If he comes in this way, we gotta go over there.
we were coming in there, I could really feel myself having to start dancing on them pedals, and was kind of fighting the helicopter to make it do what I want to do.
High winds force the pilot to abort the landing.
Just, you know, pretty hazardous work environment. It's pretty dangerous stuff out here.
The incident confirms Shelby's doubts about using a helicopter as a safe means of transport for his crew. Fortunately, it's a problem he's anticipated. Transporting the salvors to and from the barge has presented Shelby and Dave with a problem. But this is where Shelby proves his worth. He's come up with an ingenious design to solve the problem, on a scale that has never been attempted in the world of salvage. His solution is to build a cable car.
We wanted it to look good. I didn't really expect it to look nothing like this at all.
While the finishing touches are being put on the cable car, down on the beach, preparations are being made to hoist the 300-meter cables into position.
Hey, Russ. David. Today is the last long low-tide day, so what I'm thinking is, what's the chance of our running the messenger wires at least?
Getting the wire from the jack-up barge to the beach won't be easy. 150 meters of treacherous sea lies in the way. Once again, Shelby is going to have to rely on the helicopter and its pilot. Even for an experienced pilot like Russ, pulling 300 meters of cable from the barge to the beach is a severe test of his ability.
Pulling line. That's one of the most dangerous things you'll do in a helicopter.
Using a grappling hook, Russ must first pick up a lead rope from the barge. With the lead rope now attached, he must drag the wire across the beach while the crew on the barge slowly feed him the wire. But there's danger. The line has slipped and is now out of control, falling into the sea and gathering momentum. Russ must think fast to counterbalance a sudden tug from the wire.
They get pulling too much weight, they shock load the helicopter, and it just tightens up real quick, and boop, slams him in the ground.
But he's not out of danger yet. From 50 meters below the ocean, currents are yanking the wire, and once again, Russ is at risk of losing control.
So I had to drop it then and there and help those guys get scramble after it.
Dave races to the shoreline, ready to collect the guide rope. The rope is now safely on the beach. Now all they have to do is drag 150 meters of heavy-duty cable up the beach and over the sand dunes. The excavator has reached the sand dune, but even the boss doesn't think it'll make it up the steep hill. In fact, he's betting on it.
How far up do you think you can get? What? Yeah. $2.
But Shelby's not the only one on the team with novel solutions. The driver goes up the hill backwards and uses the scoop to give him that final push. You can afford to lose the odd $2 bet when you have a budget of $16 million. But only if Shelby's cable car works like it's supposed to. In the Mediterranean, off Gibraltar, the salvage team for the New Flame are about to find out whether Jimmy's plan works. He's called in a massive crane, which sits on a barge. It will hoist the accommodation block off once the cut has been completed. All of the rigging for the 700-ton lift has to be secured to the new flame. It's a perilous operation. Salvage diver John Walsh is leading a team trying to join the chains that will link the funnel to the crane.
You worry about, you've got 4 or 5 guys to work with. You've been given a task, get the rigging in, and you try to do it as quickly, efficiently, and safely as possible. Get everybody on the wreck with 10 fingers and 10 toes, and get everybody, the same number of people, off the wreck with 10 fingers and 10 toes.
The currents in the Strait of Gibraltar are notorious. The heavy swell is making it impossible to make the connection.
The guys can't put the rigging on right there. They're fighting with it.
After watching John and his team battle against the elements for 2 hours, Jimmy has no option but to step in.
Keeping a schedule is critical. And I felt my experience could help the guys out to get it done. I'm more than willing to do it.
Jimmy knows he has to find a way to protect his divers from the surf. Otherwise, attaching the rigging for the new flame to the crane's hooks will be impossible.
There's a lot of hazards. You're going to get a broken arm or a broken leg. Or you're going to get crushed by a 400-pound shackle. You're going to drop a pin on your foot. You know, the younger guys need to be able to support the older guys and watch each other's back.
Jimmy's solution is as radical as it is inventive. By cutting holes in the new flame's funnel, Jimmy has created a work platform that offers his divers some shelter from the waves. For his plan to work, though, everyone will have to be on top of their game.
Your task is to control that whip line. Do not tie it off.
Got to keep an eye on your rigging the whole time. And it's going up and down. You've got people shouting at the left, right, center. You've got to keep an eye on what you're doing and keep an eye on everything around you.
Even with the extra protection of the funnel, putting in the final pin that will secure the connection is incredibly difficult.
The problem was with the 40-ton blocks that we were trying to hook up. And they're swinging, cables are dangling, and you've got to make a connection that you only have millimeters to spare. That's a difficult one.
The situation is about to become a lot more difficult. The pin that is supposed to connect the funnel of the new flame to the crane has been dropped and is heading to the bottom of the sea.
Everyone here had been working for 3 really long days, and we were 2 shackles away from the end. And then we had the pin in and we were riding it. We almost had it in. Swell came up, took it out of Wayne's hand, took it out of my hand. And at that point, it was just like, oh.
I would say a momentary lapse, but it was a destructive momentary lapse because it shut the operation down.
They will have to get another pin and start again. Unless Jimmy and his salvage team can make the connection, the accommodation block of the new flame is going nowhere. On the west coast of Oregon, they're also rigging vital equipment. Today, salvage master Shelby Harris will finally get to test the cable car system he's been working on. The cable car will allow him to transport the crew to and from the jack-up barge without having to rely on a helicopter. In the world of salvage, it's the first time anything on this scale has ever been attempted. Boss Dave Perot is all too aware that many in the industry don't expect the cable car to work.
There's always naysayers everywhere, particularly in what we do. A lot of people say, well, that's crazy, it can't be done.
We're just going to start and see how far we get. We don't really know what problems we're going to run into.
It's the first time we've ever had anything exotic like this. We've had very primitive things on ropes and tuggers.
Dave, I'm going to hook this ratchet strap right there. Are you driving him?
Gonna stick it in, Mike. Stick it in. Okay, we're gonna see what we can get right now. Put the ladder down, we'll come help you.
For the test run, there's no need to ask for a volunteer.
Get ready. Coming in, boys. Anybody don't want to get killed, better clear out the back.
It's like Columbus's first voyage.
Carlos A, transponder.
Yeah, we're coming in for a crew change here. If you guys ain't ready, go ahead and get ready.
Everybody should commute to work like this.
Very satisfying. As good as it gets, just about. At my age, all the naysayers.
Now they just wait for any mishap.
Shelby's cable car is a huge success, and now the challenge of dismantling the new Carissa can begin. Back in Gibraltar, the cutting up of the new flame can't begin until the accommodation block and the funnel are safely attached to the crane. So far, joining the rigging has proved impossible in the heavy swell.
Hey, good morning, guys.
But it's a new day, and salvage master Jimmy Conroy is eager to get cracking.
If I've got a problem, I normally wake up about 2 o'clock in the morning and the solution presents itself to me.
Jimmy has decided to throw extra manpower at the problem. For every stage of the hookup, he makes sure he has enough men to cope with the movement of the rigging in the swell.
Down on the runner, down on the runner, down on blue runner. Give me that long wire. Where's our long wire that we had before?
You've got to have one chief and all the Indians there listening to the one voice. That makes sense, doesn't it? It keeps it safe.
Got it. Go. Hang on to it.
Jimmy puts John Walsh into the water to secure the pin that caused all the problems yesterday.
Okay, now the second one, John.
The troublesome pin is finally attached.
Yeah, Billy, go ahead and secure your dive station. Both connections have been made. Good job. No matter how it got done, had to be done. That was a critical hookup.
With the accommodation block securely fastened, the cutting process can begin. Two of Titan's specialist pullers begin to crank up the tension on the chain that has been wrapped around the accommodation block. Each puller can generate a force of more than 300 tons. This will drag the chain through the new flame like a giant cheese cutter. If one of the chains was to snap, the consequences would be disastrous.
Duck, if you can see it coming.
But before the cut is complete, the salvors need to test the strength of the crane's rigging. The man whose sums they are relying on is senior naval architect Albert Dye. He's arrived to supervise the lifting.
Albert is one of Titan's senior naval architects. Quite good at his job and quite a good guy to be with.
Before you really do the lift, you do a test load.
Albert has done the calculations on the ship from the initial planning stages. With 13 years' experience in the business, Albert is an expert in heavy lifts and wreck removals. He has never had an operation fail.
It's a big concern. Once he gets it, he gets 700 tons. So he's got to have his rigging right.
With Jimmy watching proceedings from the barge, Al takes charge of the operation from the vantage point of one of the tugboats.
$300 already, good. Carry on to 400.
He breaks a wire, I'm completely shut down.
300 tons.
The heavy-duty wiring has been rigged to withstand well in excess of the 700 tons that will be required to lift the accommodation block. The test should be a formality.
We break a chain or a wire?
Albert looks on in disbelief. This could be a blemish on his perfect record.
Wire's not there, so it's too far. Albert, did we break a chain or we bring a wire?
I think the shackle break or whatever.
No, this morning I had checked every one of the nuts and the pins before we left.
Yes, I checked around as well. I didn't see anything.
We had started achieving almost to the full weight of the accommodations, and just the wrong time with the wrong swell of the ocean, and we overloaded the sling and it broke.
And the wire broke.
Albert, did we order any extra 10-meter slings?
Negative.
Disappointing. That meant that a lot of hard work that went on has got to be redone.
For the second time in 3 days, Jimmy is forced to shut down operations and get another part from shore.
Financially, in the scheme of things, a loss of a day of all this equipment and personnel is huge, huge.
Now the cable car is up and running, adverse weather in Oregon is no longer such a problem. Shelby Harris and his salvage crew are preparing for their first full day on the jack-up barge. Salvage supervisor Dave Greco will lead a special team of burners to begin the cutting process. The salvers are transported from the barge onto the new Carissa via a crane.
I like doing the demolition. I mean, tearing stuff up, that's, what I love to do. So that's what cut up is. Go in there, climbing around with a torch and chainsaws and sledgehammers and fire axes and, go tear it up, make a big pile of scrap.
The new Carissa has earned a name for herself as the ship who can't be moved. But today, the crew plan to do just that, even if they will be moving her piece by piece. Working on the new Carissa will be risky. 9 years of rust and pounding waves have taken their toll on the new Carissa. Dismantling her requires precision and careful planning. With some pieces weighing over 20,000 pounds, cutting the metal in the wrong place could have disastrous consequences. As each section is cut away, it's rigged, chained, and hauled away by crane operator Billy Stender.
That piece weighed 21,000 pounds.
With the local authorities keeping a close eye on proceedings, the pressure is on for the team to carry out the work without breaking the rules. As if the job of removing the new Carissa isn't difficult enough, according to their contract, not one piece of metal is allowed to touch the beach. So a scrap barge has been hired to collect each section of the new Carissa and transport them away to be recycled.
Yeah, Shelby, see if we can't sweep it in a little.
While Dave and the team continue to work with their blowtorches, Shelby is attempting to get the scrap barge into position. Not an easy task in these waters. The tugboat is pulling at full throttle, but the ocean currents won't allow the barge to hold steady. In the crane, Billy is struggling to see his target. One of the jack-up barge's huge steel legs is blocking his vision.
I can just see the edge of it to lay it down.
He'll have to work blind and rely on Shelby's instructions.
He just kind of aims for where they want it and then let it come to him. It's kind of a moving target, but it's the whole moving target itself that worries me. It's just a bit nerve-wracking.
As each section hits the deck, the crew will have to work fast. As if the situation isn't dangerous enough, the next piece of scrap to be dropped onto the moving target is a 25-ton part of the machine room.
once they land a piece, we got to act really fast, move very quickly and accurately, get all our chains unhooked. Sometimes we don't have enough time to pull them out of the holes all the way because the barge is going to start shifting away.
Claire, just get it made off and take the part.
The current is carrying the barge away from the crane.
Better hurry up, it's moving out. Hurry up, get off there. I always want more than I'm good.
All right, Bill, I'll stop right there. We're going to walk around and take a look. We had to do a bit of duck and cover, a little running around, stuff like that. We just had to maintain a safe, conscious mind at all times when we were running around down there.
Steel beats flesh and bone every time.
Salvage is in my blood.
By Shelby's calculations, the ship is now light enough for the final stage of the operation to begin. 6 of Titan's pullers have been installed on the platform. Finally, they should be able to lift the remains of the new Carissa out of the sand and above the waterline. In Gibraltar, the Titan team are repairing their rigging. Already they have suffered the knockback of a snapped wire when they tested the connection between the lifting crane and the new flame. Everything has to be checked and double-checked to make sure this doesn't happen again. If they were to drop the accommodation block during the real lift, then removing the new flame from this major shipping lane would become incredibly difficult.
This is not something you can teach anybody. Now we just need to finish this thing.
Jimmy is anxious to get the accommodation block back to port today. The pullers are still dragging the cutting chain through the ship, but if all goes to plan, the accommodation block will come free within the hour. Jimmy has the added pressure that his boss, Titan project manager Dan Schwal, is on board, and he's expecting to see results.
Jimmy probably has more wreck removal experience than anyone I know.
Jimmy needs to know how the cut is progressing. With the accommodation block now unstable in the water, it's too dangerous to send a diver down. So John relies on the underwater camera on the ROV. Conditions are so difficult that there is a danger the ROV will get mangled in the cutting chain.
Man, that current's ripping down in there. Albert.
Yep.
Are they chain cutting?
Yes.
Okay, because if something bends and breaks with the steel, while I've got this ROV in it, we'll cut the umbilical, we lose the ROV, no survey.
The cutting needs to stop so John can complete his survey.
If you can stop for 15 minutes.
15 minutes of my time. I'll give you 5 minutes.
Right now I'm just fighting the current. I'm not worried about the chain. I'm about to lose this. It's $45,000. I have to tell Mr. Dan, and Dan has to tell the client's attorney that we just lost his money.
Thankfully, the survey shows the chain is passing cleanly through the ship, and the ROV comes out of the water with only minor damages.
Killed my thruster.
The cutting resumes, and as the chain slowly slices through the accommodation block, Jimmy and the crew can only hope that nothing else will go wrong. On the northwest Pacific coast in Coos Bay, Oregon, the salvage team are ahead of schedule despite unpredictable winds and low visibility. Thanks to the cable car, the team haven't had to miss a single day's work. Now, salvage master Shelby Harris is putting the hydraulic pulling machines through their paces. 6 pullers with a combined force of 1,500 tons will lift the remains of the new Carissa above the waterline so the Titan team can cut her up into smaller pieces.
Watch them pull, and there's just this massive power there that works slow, but nothing stops it.
Dave Greco and his team have been working grueling 13-hour shifts for the last 11 weeks. Now with the last of the stern above the waterline, the end is in sight. In a few days, there will be nothing left of the new Carissa.
We've talked about it for years. A lot of people thought we couldn't do it. Why don't we just bring the barges out there and cut it up and on the jackup?
The project has taken 4 months to complete, and during that time, the town of Coos Bay has become like a second home to Dave Perot and his team of salvers.
I would move here. I would move here lock, stock, and barrel, but have a hard time transplanting my wife out of Florida, so.
In a long and successful salvaging career, the dismantling and removal of the new Carissa is a job to be proud of.
This one will be, this was going to be right up there, and it's a job I'll never forget. It's a good way to sort of ease out of the business.
Today is a good day, I think.
In Gibraltar, it's crunch time. The cutting of the accommodation block is almost complete.
So we're vertically pulling 320 tons. Chains are good for it. The chains are good for double of that. Yes, sir, we got some good indications. Both chains are collapsing towards the middle of the accommodations, so we're getting close to popping her loose. Come on, come on, come on, come on. Wanted to be over. There we go. Okay, dock lift 6, dock lift 6.
Yeah, Jim?
Okay, I think we've pulled through. I think we've hung up on her, but we're going to take a little bit of load.
The cut is complete. Now the crane on board the barge, tack lift 6, has to take the load. This time, if one of the wires breaks, there is no easy fix. The accommodation block could be lost, and the operation could be set back months.
Okay, we're starting to see bridge wing, Captain. 320 tons. Lots. Got to be slow now. Very slow. We ain't done yet, because we got to make it to the beach. Got to make it to the beach.
To lift a 700-ton block of steel out of the sea in open water is an incredible feat of engineering. The dark-stained area of the New Flames accommodation block reveals how much was below the waterline. Now the barge will sail back to port, and this chunk of the New Flame will be cut up and sold for scrap.
All the disappointment that makes the success so sweet.
You're always nervous. The most nervous I get in a lift is when the piece is getting out of the water, the surf zone. That's when she's the most violent. That's when the more stress is on the rigging and the lift platform. You know, to see a 600 or 700 ton piece come out of the water, it puts a swagger into her step.
The rest of the New Flame will also have to be removed. But getting the accommodation block off and back to port is a huge achievement. Jimmy's boss, Dan Schwall, believes Jimmy Conroy was the right man for the job.
Some folks bring a crowbar and some folks bring a calculator. This is a job that needs a crowbar. Send Jimmy.
Removing a wrecked ship requires skill and dedication. There are many ways of solving problems along the way, whether with brain or brawn. Salvage masters like Jimmy Conroy and Shelby Harris believe that